I talk to guys in here and they talk about how they want to be their authentic selves and they don't want to play games. They don't want to do these X, Y, and Z things because it's not natural to them. And at the same time, they're losing out on women that they could actually get with if they just had a little bit more finesse, a little bit more style, and a little bit more know-how about the ins and outs of how women work. And so I want to talk about that today. I want to talk about what it means to have invisible game. And what I mean by invisible game is the kind of game whereby it's so, I wrote a definition down. I said, the ultimate goal of having game is to make it look like you are not trying, that your game is so much a part of who you are that women can just feel that you know what you're doing with women without having to over-prove it. And I think where men get stuck is we get in this thing of like, we like a woman, and because we don't have the proper training or tools, we're just trying to forcefully show women that she should pick us. Oh, I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to be there for you. I'm going to get you these gifts. I'm going to, write notes to you, and I'm going to do all these things. And then we don't understand why women aren't still going to us. Meanwhile, we see a guy that is seemingly doing nothing. Like if you look at him, you're just like, what is he doing? Why are women falling all over him? But if you really study those guys, they have mastered the art of being able to be around women in an authentic way that at the same time, it doesn't push any particular agenda, but somehow all the women know that he's the guy. He's the guy that knows what he's doing with women. And he's showing this off in a way that's might not be so obvious, but it's in various things, his action, his style, the way he moves, the way he talks, all these various things. And guess what, guys? They're doing it in a way that is authentic. But here's the caveat, is that for guys that game doesn't come so naturally to, they think that if they learn game, that it's going to be manipulative, that women aren't going to like it, and they're going to head for the hills. And what I want you to understand is that it may feel inauthentic at first when you're learning game, but as you practice it, as you do trial and error with it, and you go through the pitfalls of failing and getting back up and trying stuff again, that game will eventually just become a natural part of who you are. And then once it becomes a more naturalist thing, because it's not natural, like everything you do in life is a learned behavior. I've talked about this before. And so don't think that just because you don't have game now, that A, you can't learn it, and B, that if you learn it, it's inauthentic. Everybody learns game because everybody has to go through going from not knowing something to knowing something. Hey, look at this. This is a cell phone, right? If you ask old people if they want to learn how to do this, be like, oh, I'll never figure that out. It's not natural to me. I'm just going with this old phone over here, blah, blah, blah. Well, their old landlines aren't working as good as they used to. And so they learn this, and then after like 2 or 3 months, oh, I can swipe. I can put things in here. I know how to do a calendar. But they had to go through the process of that before it felt natural, because swiping on a phone isn't natural, yet we now all do it, Typing things on the phone by way of the little zippy keyboard, that took me forever and a day to learn. But now it's a natural part of how I use the phone. So I don't want you to be scared or frustrated at the idea of like, you have to learn game. And the last thing I'll say is this, well, in terms of this part, is that guys think that once they get into a relationship, they don't need game. So why learn at all? And I'm telling you guys, even when you're married, you're going to need game, because the part of having game, which I'll go into a little bit deeper later on, is being able to listen and respond and react to the person you're with in ways that they feel as though you get them without them having to always spell it out. And that's just a small example of the kind of game you need to have even in your relationship and married life, okay? So it behooves you to learn game. Now, I'm going to go into the 5, and by the way, there's more than 5, but the show is only so long. So I'm going to go into the 5 benefits that you will actually experience if you decide to build up your game in the right way, right? So the first great benefit is it allows you to create positive interactions with women. When you have game, you know what women like to talk about, but more importantly, you know how women like to be approached by men. You know, like the things that they're into, you know, like how to spark a joke or how to really dive deep into something that they care about. And only a guy that has game knows that this is important and knows how to bring this out in women, because women want positive experiences with guys. Like women love talking to women, but women really, really love talking to guys that seem to get them, that seem to listen to them, that seem to not judge them for the things that they're saying. And I'm gonna tell you now, if you're trustworthy enough around women, women will tell you some outlandish stuff that they have done in their past that if you were reacting the way guys would like, they blush at, like, oh my God, you did this, but you're supposed to be a flower and I'm gonna have you on this pedestal, and why would you like, women don't want that. Women want to know that when they come to you and talk to you, they can have a fun time and they can have time building trust with you, even with some of the more outlandish things. All right. So as you begin to have more game, you'll begin to understand how women want to communicate, and you'll be able to have those kind of conversations that make them feel like you just get them. All right. The second benefit of having game is it establishes confidence in oneself. I will tell you now, the version of me that had no game was always nervous around women because I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what was going to set them off. I didn't know the right topics to bring up. I didn't know how to act on dates. And so once you know that stuff, then it becomes a thing where it goes from like feeling as though she has all the power to where it's like, oh no, I know how to handle myself around women. I'm not nervous around them. I know how to confidently state my opinions. And if they try to fight me back, I know how to double down on those opinions versus saying, oh, you're so right, princess, I agree. Like, that feels really great because your confidence, it'll exude over to them. They'll feel your confidence, and then they'll want to go out with you even more so as a result. Third benefit of having game is you will have a better understanding and more empathy for women, because ultimately you can't have game without knowing the ins and outs of how women work. If you understand the things that mean things to them and that they have anxiety about or are scared of, or that they find fun or exhilarating to talk about, or you get why they react to you saying certain things, or why texting them all the time will chase them away versus not, or why asking them on certain kinds of dates will have them build interest in you quicker than others. Like, when you know these things, then again, women want to know that you instinctively understand and know how to handle women, because it makes them feel more safe and secure when you know these things. If you do not know these things and you're just going on, well, I'm going to just, tell them how I feel, and it's all about how I feel about things and my feelings, and who cares what they need, and they should understand how I operate, this and that. Well, I got news for you, guy. You can do that, you're going to chase away women. And because if women feel as though you're going to make it all about you, and you don't care how they function, and you don't care to understand how they think about things and why, even if you disagree with how they function or how they think about things, just having an understanding of where it comes from, they will feel more like you are close to them and that you care about them versus when you don't. So that's part of game too. Part of game is being able to understand them and have more empathy for them, because that allows you to connect with them on a deeper level than most guys are trying to do. The fourth benefit of having game is you have heightened emotional intelligence and communication skills. And I've had guys ask me before, like, hey, like, what's with this whole emotional intelligence thing? Here's the thing. Emotional intelligence simply means you get and understand where the other person's emotions come from. You don't have to understand them. You don't even have to agree with them. But if you are emotionally intelligent enough to understand how they're feeling these things and why, you're going to actually cause less arguments in a relationship in general. Because most of the time when women start fights with guys, it's because the woman feels as though he doesn't actually feel or understand her, right? And so even though, women will say like, oh, all women are different in terms of like how they think and feel about things, most women usually are on board with a lot of things collectively that they agree on, in terms of like, most women want to feel safe and secure. They want a guy that's going to care for them and not cheat on them and they can trust and all this other stuff, like, right? So if you understand why they operate and function the way that they do, and you understand the emotions behind it, again, you don't have to feel the emotions, but you can at least, study up on why do women feel this way when this thing's happening or this thing's said or whatever, then that's going to allow you to approach women in a way that is more authentic, but also makes them feel as though they're not going to be judged for having emotions. Or, for example, women cry about stuff all the time, right? And as guys, you're like, why are you crying over like every other thing? You see a puppy on the screen and you're crying. You see a baby in the street in a stroller and you're crying. It's like, well, cry. Well, you could be mad at that and be frustrated by it, or you could understand that women's hormones are a bit more emotional, and because of how they have to deal with kids and babies, that they tend to be, a bit more sympathetic to those things and blah, 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 blah. Like, me understanding that, if I see a woman crying, I could be like, okay, I don't get why she's crying, but I get why she's crying. Like, I get the things that are built in her that result in her having these emotions that I do not have, right? And so when you do that, then you'll find that women will feel, again, they can feel safe around you with their emotions, because women want emotionally intelligent men, because they want men that are going to be okay with them expressing their emotions to the guy, all right? Same thing goes with communication skills. As you build up your game, you're going to just by default have better communication skills. You're going to know when to talk, when to be silent, when to put a joke into something, or when to be more serious about things. You're going to understand how to talk to women on their emotional plane while still doing it from a masculine frame. And those things are very important if you want to get more women. And then the fifth benefit of having game is it allows for more meaningful and deeper connections. When you understand the things that women care about, it'll allow you to start conversations with things that women actually care about versus what most guys do on dates. And I hear this from my women friends where it's like, yeah, the guy just was there and just talking on and on about his job and about his experiences and blah, 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 blah. And like, didn't look like he was trying to ask me questions, didn't really try to find out about my life or see what made me tick. And women just want that. Like, again, because I think game gets a negative connotation, but really, ultimately, having game is being able to operate in a way where women feel as though you're trying to get them, trying to build trust, and trying to show them a fun time, like I said earlier. And so if you do these things, this is the example of having positive game. But I get it. You know, women say all the time, like, they don't want men who play games. I'm tired of these guys that play games, blah, blah, blah. So what does that actually mean, though? Like, when women say they don't like men who play games, what do they actually mean? Are they meaning that, like, all the stuff I just talked about, like they don't want guys doing that? Of course not. Here are a few examples of what women mean when they say they don't like men who play games. So for starters, when women say they don't like men who play games, they don't want a guy who's just faking interest to get sex. I answered that with Don Juan's question, or Dear Juan's question earlier about, he said, like, what if you don't care about her, but you just want to have a little fun? Well, women take that as playing game. If a woman legitimately cares about you and you're just trying to fake it to be able to get her in the bed, that's an example of game playing that women don't want, because she's opening herself up to you. And when that's taken advantage of, she feels very used and as if she got the R worded, you know, even if she didn't, but she feels it because retroactively she's realizing the way you presented yourself is not who you actually are, because you don't actually care about her. And that takes away a bit of her trusting guys, you know, and we don't want you, ultimately, guys, I don't want you to be the guy that causes the woman you're trying to get with to lose more trusting guys. Like, the women trusting us is already at a relatively all-time low. We don't need you to then be the one that adds to that, you know? Anyway, another thing that women mean when they say they don't like men who play games is that he has other relationships that he's not telling her about. Now, this is crucial because when you're in the dating phase, women are totally fine with you possibly dating other people. It's when you lie about it that women have a bigger problem, because if you're willing to lie about something like that when you're just dating, she's thinking, what other things is he going to lie about in the relationship? Is he going to lie about possibly cheating on me or having a whole ass family that I didn't know about? Like, these are real situations that women actually go through. So if you're in the beginning and she's like, hey, so are you seeing other people? You can just realistically say, well, you know, we're just dating right now, so I'm keeping my options open until, you know, so we decide that something more serious is needed, you know? And women will respect that more than you saying, oh, I'm not seeing anybody else. And then she goes on a dating app and finds out that you're there. Or she sees you, she's walking out and about in a restaurant one day and sees you with another girl on a date. Well, you did not tell her that you were seeing other people. So now it's a lie. And now she feels like you're playing games. The third way that women mean when they say they don't like men who play games is men who are hot and cold in their communication. Now, I will say this, because I talk on here a lot about how texting kills attraction and how ideally you're not doing it a whole lot. But part of the reason I say that also is because you don't want to set up a texting scenario early on that you can't keep up. So for example, let's say in the beginning, you're texting her nonstop every single day, and then you decide to listen to me. And after that first date, you don't text her you don't initiate text for like 4 days straight, right? Now she's going to think you're playing games, because up to that point, you were texting her all the time, which I advise you not to do. But because you did that, now your communication style is changing, and now you're trying to hold back and not text. And it's like, what else is she supposed to think? You went from doing a whole bunch of something to a bunch of nothing. So this is why, if you're going to be lesser on the texting side, for example, then do that from the first jump. Like, don't text her every single day when you first start texting her, or text her every few hours or so versus every 5 minutes. Because going from texting her every 5 minutes to texting her every other hour or every other day, like, yeah, a woman's going to see that and be like, what the freak? He was doing so much in the beginning, and now he's done a complete 180 where he's not texting me at all. Like, what's going on? I don't think he likes me, or I think he's playing games. Don't want to do that. The fourth thing that women mean when they say they don't like men who play games, they don't like men who manipulate her emotions to where she can't trust herself. All right. And this is why I implore you guys to really understand that because women are emotional beings, the worst thing you could do for them is try to manipulate them into feeling things that you don't want to carry over. Because let's face it, dating itself is a manipulation. She's dressing up in high heels and makeup and a dress to look better than she ever will on your day-to-day dating life. And you're trying to take her to the most fanciest restaurant to show you have the kind of money that you don't actually plan on spending all that often, you know? And so there's bound to be levels of that where it's like there's what I call positive manipulation in an attempt to put on a good first impression for somebody, but that's designed ideally for somebody you're actively trying to get with. You trying to emotionally manipulate somebody so you can hook up with them, or so you can like drag them away from their family, or so you can bring harm to them. Women don't like that either. And women that get a taste of that are going to start thinking like, oh my God, he's playing with my emotions. He must be playing games. This isn't fun. And it's not, and you shouldn't do it, you know? And then the fifth thing that women mean when they say they don't like men who play games is they don't like men who disrespect their boundaries to get what they want. These are the guys that are very, very pushy in particular about, I want to touch her right away. I want to try to hook up with her right away. And I'm going to try to do all these things to like get in her good graces. I'm going to call her nonstop, even if she asks me not to. Like women will try to make requests of guys like, hey, you don't have to text me all the time. Hey, I can't see you every single day. And then men will get butthurt. Why can't I? You're just blah, 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 blah. Dude, she's telling you exactly what she wants. So when you try to go beyond that and try to do things against her wishes, that is also felt like to them as if it's game playing, and they don't like it. They don't want you to do it.
You's a bad boy, but you can't stop, won't stop. You a high earning, high value, high class man. You a high earning, high value, high class man. You a high earning, high value, high class man. You a high class man. You a high class man. You a high earning, high value, high class man.